Hello, in this video I will show you mesh demolition types. So RayFire component provides 7 mesh demolition types. They work only for mesh object type. The first one is runtime, and it means that object will be demolished in runtime when it will collide with something, or you will shoot it using gun or explode using bomb. So you don't need to prepare any kind of assets or meshes or fragments or objects. All you need to do is just have this object you want to break, just mesh filter with mesh renderer and rigid component. So here you can set in mesh demolition fragments group, you can set amount of fragments you want to get and other properties. I will talk about them later. And basically that's all. You can start play mode and just drop whatever you want to your object or drop them. And here are your fragments. They were created in runtime. As you can see, these meshes don't have any assets. They are not inside your asset folder. They are just inside the scene. And also you can break your fragments even further using this depth level. Right now at 1, I will set it to 2. Now every fragment which I will create will be possible to demolish even further. So these are my fragments from first depth level. And now you can see some of them fall and were demolished even further. And so on. This way you can demolish your fragment infinitely, more and more until you will turn them into dust. So that was runtime. Also, runtime demolition type allows you to use this contact bias, which allows you to create more tiny fragments at the contact point. So let's say if I will move my rock here, here you can see that it created more tiny fragments at contact point here and bigger fragments far from this point. Next demolition type is awake precache, and it means that all fragment meshes will be precached in awake. The most expensive calculations will be done in awake, so when object will be demolished, you will not spend time for mesh calculations. All the rigid component will do, it will just create game object with all components and apply already precached meshes. So right now I set it to 100, and when I start play mode, you can see that it says here now precached mesh 100. So all the fragments already created. In this case, you cannot define the contact point because you don't know where it will be. So you can initialize rock, and here you can see 100 fragments. In this case, you can use a higher amount of fragments because you don't need to calculate them in runtime. It will calculate them in awake. So next demolition type is awake pre fragment. In this case, it not only precache all the meshes in awake, it also create game object with all the components and apply fragment meshes. So again, when I start play mode, you will see that it says here now 200 fragments already pre-fragmented. And here in the RayFire menu, you already can see all the fragments. They're just they have all the components, the meshes, and the rigid component. So all you need to do is just activate them at the demolition. And in this case, you can use even higher amount of fragments. So in this case, I use 200 fragments. So again, when I will demolish this box, it will create 200 fragments instantly. Next, demolition type is manual precache. It works just like awake precache, but difference is that in this case you can manually precache all the fragment meshes. So here I can click scene precache. Now it says again 100 meshes precached. So when I will start play mode, it will not even calculate anything because it will use whatever you already precached manually. And again, here 100 fragments. And next demolition type is manually prefab precache. This one. The difference is that in this case, when you right now, also as you can see, it says no RF meshes precached yet. But in this case, if you will precache meshes, it won't store them as a mesh unity inside rigid component, because if you will try to move this object into asset and create prefab, it will not save your unity meshes, because prefab is basically just a text file. It cannot store unity mesh, so you will end up with well, actually, let me show you. So here you can see I have this object with 100 unity meshes pre-cached. If I will move it here and create prefab, and then I will move this prefab here, it still says 100 meshes, but actually it doesn't have them, because let me put it here. You can see that it wasn't demolished. It show you error here because there are no fragments. No, there are no meshes. So, and if you are going to pre-cache meshes and then store them and then save object as a prefab, then you need to use this manual prefab pre-cache demolition type. So when you will click prefab pre-cache, it will pre-cache all the. Now you can see it says pre-cache serialized meshes. In this way, you can move your object and create prefab. This one. And if you will move this object here, so now this is a prefab with pre-cached serialized meshes. And you can see that it demolishes without any problems, because all the, let me show you the actual prefab. So you can see this prefab, which tried to save original Unity mesh, its size is 70 kilobytes because it cannot store any kind of mesh information. But this prefab size is much higher because it stores all the mesh data inside of it. So this is a way to store your prefab with all the pre-cached meshes, but be ready that the prefab size will be higher. The next fragmentation type is manual prefragment, and it works just like manual precache. Again, it will allows you to pre-fragment object and create all the fragments in editor. So when you start play mode, it will not spend any time in awake to create anything, because so as you can see, everything already there. So this box root is from this object, which is awake prefragment, which were just created, and this already were created in editor. So again, when you demolish, you will demolish object, it will just swap original object to already prefragmented objects. And the last one is reference demolition. There will be special video about reference demolition, but shortly, it allows you to break your mesh object to anything else. It can be an FBX asset, any other prefab, or maybe scene object. In this case, I will use one of the example I used before. This will be a box connected nested cluster. So again, I have only one object. Here I defined my prefab, which is nested cluster. It also has a RayFire component. It already has all the properties defined here inside this prefab. So when I will break this object, it will be swapped to whatever you will define in reference demolition properties. Here you can see how it works. But again, using this feature, you can create much more things. So I will create another special video just about reference demolition. In this case, I just wanted to show you how it works shortly. So that were mesh demolition types. Thank you for watching.